How's it going, everybody? So, one thing that comes up in lawn care a lot is contracts. If people use them, if they don't. Turns out most people don't use them. I use contracts, and so I get questions from people that tell me, or they hear that I have contracts. They want to know how to do it themselves, what's in my contract, what how I go about using the contract. And so I thought just make a video so that everyone could see. I'll start by saying I'm not like an expert or anything. I'm not a financial guru. I'm not a millionaire. I'm just a regular guy. I live in Tampa area, Florida. I started my business in Colorado. I did it for 2 years there. I did it for 1 year in Indiana before I came to Florida. I've been here for 5 years. And so this is just based on my experience as a small business lawn care guy. This won't apply to a lot of people. If you live up north where it snows and you only work 6 months a year, this obviously won't apply to you. And if you are a landscaping company that is mostly landscaping, and you'll make considerably more money in landscaping than you do from lawn care, then keeping customers under contract isn't something that you're too concerned about anyways. And so, if the shoe fits, wear it, take it for what it's worth. This is just what I do. I didn't get this advice from anybody. I didn't, this is just from learning over the years, from running the business and learning lessons. And so I'll get started on the first. These are my contracts. These are the active ones. They just have a company logo and then the scope of work. And these are my active ones. I keep my inactive ones or expired ones in a separate folder, and I keep them in my file cabinet so that I can always have them. I always do paper contracts because I don't want there to be any misunderstanding. I want to sign the paperwork in person so that no one can say that they didn't understand. I can't say I didn't understand if the customer, if I don't do something I said I would. It can go both ways. And so on that note, I'll get started. The first reason I prefer contracts is because in Florida, we do year-round lawn care, and my pricing structure is based on an average, actually. So it's the price per visit multiplied by the number of visits for the year, and then that will give you your yearly total for service, and then you take that number and divide it by 12 months, and that gives you the price of lawn care, the monthly price. So if you start, just for simplicity's sake, we'll say that that the price is $30 a visit, and then they're going to get 40 visits for the year. So $30 times 40 visits is $1,200 for the whole year. You take the $1,200 and you divide it by 12 months, and it creates an average monthly price. So then that would be $100 a month in that scenario. And so if, say you come to an agreement with the customer, it's $100 a month, you start service, they sign contract, and after a month of service, they decide that they don't want service anymore. And all you've collected is the 1 month of $100 a month. The problem with that is that you told them it was $30 per visit, but that number is only achieved if they serve out the whole contract. You don't achieve the desired price per visit until the 12 months is seen out, especially if you start in the beginning of the summer months. At $30 a visit, a month of service would be $120 on a per cut basis, but you broke it down over 12 months, so you only collected $100 actually. And so if you start in April and service weekly until October, some companies quit in November and go bi-weekly. But if that customer tries to quit service because the grass quit growing a lot, then you've actually not collected any profit for the March or for the April through October work, because you were going to collect it when you switch to bi-weekly service, when you only have to come half the amount of times and put half the amount of gas into it, and everything is, the cost of doing business, the overhead is cut in half, but you still collect the same amount of money every month. So if you come for 3 months of service at $100 a month, you've collected $300, but at $30 a visit, that would have actually been $360. And so you've got nothing to offset that. You've not made $30 a visit. And so a lot of homeowners will try to quit service in October or when it goes bi-weekly, not understanding that now you're short. I have to achieve the profit, and I only get to do that typically by serving out the whole contract. Now, if they start their contract in October or when service goes bi-weekly, then by the time weekly service comes around in April, I've actually collected the fat end of the contract first for the first 6 months. And then at that point, when April comes around, the customer is paid more than $30 per cut or per visit. And so I service weekly through the end of the summer to even that out. And then they've only paid $30 a visit. But for both sides, for me to collect that $30 a visit and for them to pay only $30 a visit, the whole contract has to be seen through. Otherwise, I end up short. Another reason I require contracts is because I want my income to stay the same every month. I take a little bit less than the desired price per visit in the summer months in exchange for keeping it the same money in the winter months. That's why I do it that way, or that's part of the reason I do it that way. My bills don't cut in half in the bi-weekly months. My shop rent is still the same amount. My mortgage or rent is still the same amount. Nothing changes in the bi-weekly months. So why would you structure it that way if you depend on lawn care for the most part? It wouldn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. In Florida, in the lawn care business, a huge problem is that you have lots of fly-by-night companies that appear every single year. And I mean, it's in every state, but it's year-round here in Florida. So what'll happen is they'll get contracts or they'll get accounts. The new lawn care companies will get accounts, and then the summer will come, the heat will come, and the rain will come, and it totally can make things difficult, and they'll give up, and they'll leave customers hanging. And then customers have to try to get another lawn care company to get them on their schedule in the middle of summer when we're balls to the wall, peak busy season. And it's hard for a lot of times for that. And it's a big frustration for a lot of homeowners. And so, when I feel like having a contract, it sends a message to the homeowner that I'm going to be there. You can count on me. I want to be here for a year. I want a year of income. I want to help you out for a whole year. And you won't have to worry about me not showing up. You won't have to worry about communicating with me. Here's my business card. It has my cell phone number on it. You can text me anytime. But I require a contract. I provide really good service. I'm dependable. It conveys a message of professionalism, I think. And a lot of people will think that customers just won't sign a contract, and they will sign a contract with you. So, but anyways, I believe that it conveys that message. A lot of homeowners are also business owners, and they're business owners who have structured, planned businesses, and they also don't exchange their services without a signed agreement that they're going to get paid. And so to that kind of homeowner, that can look like a really good thing that you run your business that way, and that you're structured, and that you don't let the customer determine how the business is going to go. They'll tell you, well, the other guys don't require contracts, and I go, you're totally welcome to go with those other guys, but I'm offering you a good thing with the contract. I want your business. I want to come for 12 months. And so my argument is always, that's great if you don't want a contract, but it's rarely a problem. So I always want to go with the contract. I think it conveys a good message to the customer. So another reason I like to use contracts for my lawn care is because I feel like when the time comes and I'm ready to move on, it makes my company easier to sell, and it's going to make my company fetch a little bit more money. I don't have any data to prove, or I don't know if there's ever been any industry data taken on that particular subject, but what I do know is that in the conversation of trying to buy other people's lawn care companies or routes or accounts, the question always comes up is, what's the guarantee? And we all know that there is no guarantee if there's not contracts, and that makes your company worth not very much. They typically want to, what I hear is 60 to 90 days of revenue, sometimes 6 months if it's worth it. But the fact that I can say I have a history with these customers, they've re-signed their contracts and for multiple years, I have a rapport with them, I have a good relationship with them. It sounds much better than no, I don't know my customers, I have no contracts, there's no guarantee that these customers will be here tomorrow, and you could give all your money to some guy selling his accounts that the majority of his customers probably hated or could have hated, and then they wouldn't they could dump you. They could just go find someone else the day after you spend all your money when they find out that you're coming. And not that that's typical. Typically, if you do it right, you should be able to introduce the guy buying your company to the new customers, and they'll all know that the new guy's coming. But just saying, these customers could disappear the next day. So the fact that they have contracts just says there's a little bit better chance that you're actually going to keep them for the first year. So real quick, I just wanted to go over my contract and what was in it. I'm in a different shirt because I deleted the original video that I took about this. So the first portion of the contract is just the customer's info, the date that it starts, the date that it ends, the date that we signed it, and then name, address, and the price per month. The number one is the scope of work. My service is basic. It's pretty much like everyone else's out here. Per visit, it's cut, trim, edge it, blow it off, and then once a month I do the hedges. That's all that's included. That's nothing more, nothing less. If you have a lot of hedges, I will account for that. It'll be different, but almost every house has at least a couple of hedges in the front of them, and they got to stay trimmed. Number two is the term. It says that it's a year-long contract. They can cancel the contract. There is a cancellation fee. I have it written in here that it's the remaining months on the contract. I write it like that just so I can cover the whole span of the contract. I wouldn't want to put a certain number on it and then short myself on the profit depending on what point in the contract we are. And then I also, because they have a spot on my route, I can only take on so much work. And so I could have put another person in your spot for the whole year at a higher rate possibly. And so, but I put you there. So there's a cancellation fee. Number three is just a water suggestion to water your grass. It says it's not my fault if your grass dies because you didn't water it. But that's not a common thing in Florida. Number four is payment. I send my invoices out on the 15th of every month. It basically says that you have between the 15th and your payment's due by the 1st of the month, but you're gonna get your invoice 15 days before the 1st. And so if they don't pay, we don't put them on the schedule. Again, I'm flexible on that. Most of the time, if they don't pay by the 1st, it's simply because they forgot, or just something out of the normal happened. If they've been a good paying customer, I'm going to service the yard. We're going to keep good service on it. If you're a pain in the ass customer and I have to text you every month to pay, I'm going to leave it uncut on purpose. I'm not going to change the price. It's not my fault if we can't come because you didn't pay. Number five is performance. It just says that we'll perform good service using, up to par materials and using quality workmanship, that we'll know what we're doing or we won't do the job. Number six just says that all persons working under the direction of High Class Lawn Care will be employees of High Class Lawn Care and not the customer, and that the company is responsible for their wages, not the customer. Number 7 is about notices. We're going to send our notices that we have via email typically that you give us. If you don't have an email, we're gonna come and put it in your mailbox handwritten. Number 8 just addresses trash and debris, trampolines. None of it's included. We're not going to move any of it. It's not to say that that's a hard thing to do one time, but if you had to do it at 20 houses in a day, that would take up half your day to pick shit up. Trampolines I will move every so often. They're not hard to move. I'm just not going to do it every time. But it's not included, and it just says that in the contract. And then it just has print client name, sign client name, and the date. And so that's pretty much that in case you were interested. Another thing I do at my company is I implemented prepay when I first came to Florida about 5 years ago. And I do it for multiple reasons. They all kind of are intertwined with each other because not doing one leads to another. And so the biggest reason I do is because so I don't provide work up front, and so I don't end up in the hole with the customer. You see all the time on social media where people will say, "Oh, I'm X amount of dollars. This customer owes me X amount of dollars, and I'm having a hard time recovering it, and he won't answer my texts," and so on and so on. And the typical responses will be, you can take them to civil court, you can file a lien, or you can send them to collections. But you can't send them to collections if you don't have the contract. Just a side note. If you don't have a way to prove they agreed, none of these routes are going to be sufficient for you. You can't collect the money if you don't have a contract or a text of agreement or something along those lines. Anyways, these guys will always be X amount of dollars in the hole, and all the remedies of that are things you do after the fact, after you've already provided the work, after the customer won't text you back, after you've not collected the money. And so while those are all great options to collect money, the best option, my answer, is always implement prepay. And another factor because why prepay is good is that in the event that you don't collect the money, it's almost hard to collect $100 when they owe it to you going through a collections route or a civil court route or it almost costs as much to file to collect the $100. And so you're going to have to eat it. If you prepay and they have a contract, there's no way they can say they don't owe you the money. They've agreed to it. And so not being in the hole is a huge reason I do prepay. Another reason is because it ensures that my money's there every month at the beginning of the month. It ensures that if you have employees, and this number goes up, the more accounts you have, obviously the bigger the number is. So you can make sure that your employees get paid. You don't got to screw anybody because you're out chasing money because you provided a bunch of work up front. Because when you provide work up front, you also are providing payroll up front, you're providing overhead up front, and you're providing a lot of things kind of behind the scenes on the customer's behalf. And if they choose not to pay you, you not only lose the money for that service, but you lose the money that you put into it to get there. And so that's another reason. I want my money to be there at the beginning of the month. We're normal people. We all have bills to pay on the first of the month, just like payroll employees. Payroll employees know when they're going to get paid. They know when the money's going to be there. And while not all the money's there at the beginning of the month, most of it will be. And like today is the 16th of January, and my invoices went out yesterday, actually. And I have probably half of next month's income in my account right now. It's already there waiting for me, and a lot of my bills will be paid on time. And then, like I said before, it's just too much. It's too small of an amount of money to be chasing around. By the time you get done chasing it, you break even on it, and it's not worth it. And then the other reason is not really based on money, but just common sense. It makes sense to me to think this way. Very few businesses or service providers, whether they're a retail place and they sell a physical product or whether they're a service provider, off the top of my head, I couldn't really name a business where you get to get the product or the service and then decide 30 days later that you're going to make the voluntary choice to pay. That would never be an efficient way to run. That's why most businesses don't run that way. And there's like a stigma amongst homeowners for lawn care guys that we're just going to happily provide a month of service before getting paid once. We're going to come 2 to 5 times, depending on the weekly or bi-weekly. In a month, we're going to come 2 to 5 times, and they expect to be able to pay for it after the fact. And I disagree. You don't get to get a Big Mac, and especially you don't get to get multiple Big Macs from McDonald's over the course of 30-day month, and then pay for them at the end of the month. McDonald's would lose millions of dollars. They would never be profitable because between the 1st and the 30th of the month, they would come up with reasons why their burgers weren't worth paying for, but yet they still consumed all of the burgers that they ordered, which is the same in lawn care. You had no problems receiving my service, but now you have a problem paying for it. And I do the same thing every time I come pretty much in lawn care. So whatever may have happened the first service should have happened the fourth one, and there should have, if it was a problem, there should have been a complaint. And so that's why I do that. You don't get to try on clothes for 30 days and return them or pay for them. You can return them, but you can't try them on and then just decide you want to pay for them and keep them. You don't get to do food that way at restaurants. You get the food and you pay before you leave, or you're a thief. Any company, any business, most businesses, whether retail or especially only retail, you buying it right there on the spot, unless you're doing layaway, but then you don't get to leave with the product. They take business. What I'm getting at is businesses take measures to ensure that they collect the money before giving away the product. And if they didn't, they wouldn't be profitable. So don't do that to yourself also, is how I feel about that. And that's how I run my company. Most homeowners don't have a problem with it. They might wonder why or not understand why you do prepaid, but when you tell them all these things, they understand. They're pretty open to that conversation. A lot of times they just don't know why you're doing it because they don't own a lawn care company. And so I think it's a good thing. It's never failed me. Couldn't possibly. And it's not to say that everybody pays their bill by the 1st. Some people don't. But usually there'll be a reason, and it usually works out okay. So that's all that. Every time I film these things, I think of like 3 or 4 more things that I could have said or should have said or maybe should have addressed. I'm sure that maybe some point down the road I'll be able to shoot a better, more in-depth video. Maybe a year or 2 later, I'll add things to my company that I'll want to make another video about or tell people. But those are pretty much the important parts of my contract and my business and prepaid to me. It's just to me. It's not to say that anybody else is running their business wrong. I do think there's a lot of people that could tighten up the show a little bit. As an industry, we could become a lot stronger if we would implement contracts where we should. If we would charge prepaid. But for the most part, I think we're all pretty decent people and we want to help the industry. And I think that to run my business this way helps my industry because it'll set an example for another person. It's secure. It makes sure that I get paid, and it makes sure that I have yearly income every month that doesn't fluctuate. And so that's just my 2 cents on it. I always appreciate additional info. If anybody does it differently or does it the same but has a couple other things they do, please feel free to share. Otherwise, thanks for watching. I hope I helped you.